Shudder makes good movies sometimes. They do certainly have a great eye for quality. And on a side note here, the trailer for the American version of Speak No Evil played before this movie, and while I like every single actor in it, it just made me laugh knowing how recently it came out and already is being replicated. I really wonder if they have the balls to do the same ending. We will see. Anyway, what do I think about In a Violent Nature? It's good, but Nash made some very, very bold choices in the way he presented this slasher story. You probably saw the title of this video, and these choices is what that title refers to. When you think of slasher movies, and this does for me rank among some of my favorites in modern times here now, but usually you're thinking about Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, maybe Chucky. But let me tell you, the immediate reaction movies that Violent Nature brought to my mind: Maniac, Elephant, Skinamarink, and Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. It's detached POV that is attempting to simulate the day in the life of a Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees-esque killer. It is slow cinema, as the director himself said. It's passive as fuck, and if you're in the right mood for it, could be really engrossing. In a Violent Nature is equal parts Gus Van Sant and John Carpenter, which begs the question I've been playing with in my head: is Chris Nash rejoicing with horror fans through this exercise in trope dissection, or is he maybe testing slasher horror fans' patience on purpose, sarcastically indulging in the mundane chores of a cinematic serial killer to subvert its core audience's expectation of what they came to see in the first place? I think either way though, In a Violent Nature is sarcastically scary. By eliminating the cliche stories that often hang upon the structure of even the best slashics, and giving you such an intimate but detached look at our killer's journey, all that's left is the realness. All that's left is the monotony. All that's left is the space between. In a Violent Nature is not a deconstruction of horror tropes the way that Cabin in the Woods or Tucker and Dale vs. Evil are, where there are many characters that are far more complexly designed and a lot of subversion can be done via dialogue or story beats. The difference is, In a Violent Nature comes to you fully deconstructed and leaves it up to you to put together your story. But the space between in a Violent Nature is this killer, and he walks and he kills. And sometimes he walks and it's very compelling, and sometimes he walks and it's boring as fuck. Sometimes he kills and it's the gnarliest shit I've ever seen in my life, and sometimes the kills are kind of great but are stretched out to literally 6 to 7 minute long single takes on a steady cam, and it really tests your patience. My love for the movie Skinamarink really gave me some training for this movie, and I've come to the conclusion that this film works very well from a couple perspectives. From the base level perspective, Violent Nature is a bold new take on the slasher genre, and it's entertaining, if at the cost of being a little slow. The premise is executed very well here, with many long shots building to ultimately rewarding moments of gore and brutality. But I think the best perspective to have for this movie is everything from that base level, but throw in what made Skinamarink so scary, for me anyways. If it didn't work for you, I understand, and all the criticisms that you might have of In a Violent Nature are probably similar to Skinamarink, so that's okay. We'll have to agree to disagree on that. But that is the space between. Put the camera in a position and let things play out. Let your mind wander to these different parts of the shot. Let me sit with all of this. Keep me following your breadcrumbs. Minimalist horror so rarely, if ever, is injected into specifically this subgenre of horror, the slasher flick. That's for over-the-top kills and gore and titties and synth scores, but Violent Nature has zero score other than ambient forest life to chill/study to and big hulking footsteps of our killer and zero titties, and I was looking all over for them. But it's scary by letting you actually sit in the corner and watch. I know I complained earlier about the 8-minute shot or whatever, and spoilers for this movie, kind of. But the shot is actually far scarier being 8 minutes because the victim is paralyzed at the start of the scene and his eyes are darting around throughout the shot. if you're on this movie's wavelength, it could really give you an unsettling feeling. But this movie is also hilarious in a weird way. A good example being one of the last kills, where it's another unnecessarily long shot, but it's on the killer just wailing on this dude with a hatchet until his entire upper half is slop. So it's almost like Chris Nash, hopefully as a genuine fan of slasher movies, is seeing what would happen if he pushed limits of the basic slasher genre by giving it an abstract art house aesthetic. Simple enough. Remove the stories and characters that slasher fans love to hate and call cliche, because they often are, because it's very hard to avoid the elephant in the room being the good kills are the centerpiece. So it's almost like Nash, hopefully as a genuine fan of slashers, is seeing what would happen if he pushed the limits of the basic slasher genre by giving it this abstract art house aesthetic. Remove the stories and characters that slasher fans love to hate and call cliche, because they are. It's like Nash wanted to strip the slasher down to what are often seen as the absolute essentials of the genre, in some experimental effort to see how, if I may quote Kendrick, the core audience would stomach that. And for that reason, that's my take. I think In a Violent Nature is kind of sarcastic in how it is scary. I think it's successful at what it sets out to do, and I look forward to watching this in the fall on a lot of streaming rainy days when it hits Shudder. A couple random things I really like. The yoga scene is fucking hilarious and disgusting. It's probably the best kill since Terrifier 2, which is definitely a dub. I love the final shot peering into the woods, or in the final scene, the long shot just focused on that wood line is very scary. And also, I really just loved the cliche, typical horror film that is going on in the peripheral of this movie with all of these young adults camping. I love the fill her up, fill her up, fill her up. It's like this dialogue that's placed in the peripheral would normally be the funny, campy quotes people would be throwing at the screen, you know, at a midnight screening of some quote-unquote shitty 80s slasher movie. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy it, or at least got a little more out of it than what seems there on the surface, because if you think it holds no value at all due to its pacing or how boring it is, I think that's a little reductive. Let me know what you thought in the comments. This one really was kind of a head scratcher for me though. Peace, guys.
Animals don't get too hung up on reason. They just keep killing.